Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, the 9th of November, 2022, and welcome to Hindsight, where we learn to be a better trader. We're going to take a look at the stock RNE, or Renew Energy. We're going to briefly look at this announcement, just the headlines really, and there appears to be a signing of a term sheet with HEST Australia with the investment of up to $100 million to produce green hydrogen. Now, green hydrogen is really stonky. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half, it's been a while since I've seen green hydrogen come up and the market showing some interest. But considering this stock is sitting around, I think about 35 million market cap at the 10-cent peak today, it's no surprise that this stock rallied and ran a bag. So it was sitting at about 15 mil market cap before it closed yesterday. And so you can see, up to $100 million is pretty significant for a stock that's sitting at 15 mil market cap, rallies to 30 mil market cap, and has one of the best setups. It's my all-time favorite. You guys know it, pump, consolidate, pump. And what we have here on the right-hand side is just a closing match price at the moment, because it's almost 410. And this is delayed by 20 minutes because I don't really use TradingView that much. It looks good for the recordings, but real time I actually use Irish Trader for my charting, so it's delayed 20 minutes. Not that it actually matters, because the bulk of the information here is about the pump, consolidate, pump. We can see that it just creates higher lows, higher lows, higher lows all day long until it breaks to the upside. Of course, you guys can see it peaks here with some sick volumes, and it just can't breach 9.9. In fact, 9.8 really was the level to watch out for with lots of volumes at this level. And 9.8 is what we'll see a lot of manipulation on later on in the day. So you can see there's a bit of a move down, pullback. Usually 9.2 is the pullback. For those of you guys who have watched my way older videos, 9.2 is always the pullback when it hits 10 cents. Now this didn't hit 10, it hit 9.8, 9.9, but still the same concept applies. Catch it at 9.2, catch the bounce, and that's all it is really, just a bounce. It did end up dipping a little further at 8.9, but that's okay. We got 9 here as support and 9.1, I guess, if you will, catch the wicks. But ultimately, it does bounce off this level, and it does wick down just a little bit too much. Doesn't matter. Caught the bounce, sold the bounce. A little bit of profit to be made there. That's also an aspect of this sharp rally to 10 cents. One of my favorite trades is taking 9.2 for the bounce. Now, what we end up having is volumes tapering off. Now, this isn't really low volumes like I was hoping to see, but we did actually end up getting it for just about an hour and a half, which is nice to see. So you can see it sort of ranges, and the volumes are nice and low. Typical pump consolidate. You saw my video yesterday, or was it the day before? Again, same sort of setup. It's not exactly A+ until the volume actually spikes. Now what I was hoping to see was something like this. A little bit of a spike somewhere here. Basically, I just wanted 1 or 2 candles of a spike and then into a pullback a little bit, maybe drop a few ticks, add on a little bit more in order for the preparation about 10-15 minutes later for the stomp to the upside. But the volumes came in really hot, and they kept coming in hot, and it just sort of pushed from there. So it just kind of just launched straight away, which is a little bit different. We don't normally see that in a pump consolidate pump. We usually get a spike in volume, which is significantly larger than the volumes here, and then it sort of cools off, and then we get the blast off in volumes. But this felt a little bit too significant, right? These volumes here are pretty much on par with the volumes earlier in the day, so that's not what I'm after. This is kind of a rare scenario where it just shoots straight up. So right off the bat, this setup is a little bit unusual. I know some people love my pump consolidate setup, so what they've done is they've been buying as it's making higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And in this instance, it actually worked out quite well. Buying in sort of the 9.2, 9.3, and maybe even 9.4 area right before the pop, selling it at 9.9, 9.8, something like that, right before the 10 cent level. Now, the complexity behind this setup, and there are sort of tiers to how this functions as a setup. Not everything's the same. You can't just get a pump consolidate, and guaranteed pump to the upside. It doesn't work as simply as that. There are different elements, different aspects. So, things such as shares on issue is going to matter. Things such as the 10 cent psychological level is going to matter. Breaking 10 cents is fucking difficult. It's just difficult. If you got a stock that was 4 cents the day before and you hit 10 cents today, getting to 11 is not too bad. 10.5 is okay as well. 11's difficult, but getting above 11 is just frankly fucking impossible. It's just so difficult unless the fundamentals are so good. And even in this case, the fundamentals sounded great. I'm not sure the market really knew what to value this thing because the investment dollars said up to $100 million, so it could be $1 million, right? There was no floor in that announcement that I saw. So it's anywhere from $0 to 100 mil. So it's a bit of a lottery jackpot in how much they get in terms of investment dollars, right? Up to, I don't like the wording, but it's still a pumpy announcement nonetheless. There's just a lot of room for speculation and uncertainty, which is what drives price discovery. People trying to find out what it's worth. Now, 10 cents is awkward. 10 cents is always going to be awkward. Like I said, catch it as close to 10 as possible. 9.2, fantastic. Catch the bounce, ta-da. There's my A- setup. Because it doesn't always bounce to 9.2. Sometimes you get 9.3 and then it kind of just shoots up. But 9.2 is fucking brilliant. For me anyway, that's how I trade it. And what we end up having here is a few different scenarios for a pump consolidate. And really the bulk of the issue is that this is at the 10 cent level. If this pumped and consolidated at 8 cents, yeah, it gets to 10 cents as well. It doesn't have to be a rally to 10 and consolidate and then retest 10. In fact, it just makes things awkward. So things aren't as clear cut as, hey, here's a setup, therefore make money. As you can see, there's already some deviation in that we haven't really seen this before. At least it's not common at all. It's just straight volume spike without the initial bump in volumes, a significant bump in volumes first, leading later on to a significant blow up in volumes. So that also occurred. And then what we ended up having, if you guys watch the replays, 9.8, the rug pulls. Serious amounts of rug pull action. We had 9.8 stack and pull 1 million shares about 2 or 3 times. And shorts were available on this actually, which was quite interesting to see. And what ended up happening is just rug pull after rug pull after rug pull. And I'm super surprised this didn't sell off for that much time. It just kept going for about 20 minutes. And I thought, that's fucking unreal. Why are people not selling off? And then, of course, it eventually sort of came off pretty hard. And then you can see just by the volumes. You can see where are the buy volumes, right? There's a spike in buy volume. Where is it? It's this little candle here. It's that little candle right there. Insignificant. And yet, look at its sell-off volume. A little bit there and a little bit there. Where else? A little bit here. So these little bits of volume have taken it from 9.8 down to 9.3. And you've got so much volume holding it here, churning. Right? Heaps of volume here, holding it around 9.8. And then absolute peanuts is dragging it down. And then this tiny little bit of buy volume. Someone steps up and buys quite a fair bit there. What's that, 1 million shares? Yeah, 1.5 million shares. And eventually it drives back up again, which this is actually a real big surprise, is that it went right back to 9.9. Given the pump consolidate, right? So here's the consolidate, there's the pump with the volume. To come off and then retest is something I've never seen before in this setup, ever. It's just something very unusual. And then of course we see more rug pulls. And then it just gets murdered to the downside. And even right as we're coming to close, as I just started recording it, right before I recorded, maybe a minute or two beforehand, there were rug pulls at, I think it was 7.6 or something like that. Obviously this is 20 minutes delayed data, so the market's already closed. As you can see, it's closed at 7.5. So at 7.6, I'm pretty sure I saw a mil or two just blatantly putting it in the bids and then pulling it, trying to push the stock up a little bit. So manipulation all the way down, which is just really sad to see. And then of course high volume pukes. And it's just a really disgusting move. So really for me, the final trade was the rally, and then as it came off, I was like, nah, this setup should break through the 10-cent level. Now 10-cent makes it a bit flip-floppy, you know, major psychological level. I'm not fond of trading the 10-cent range. So as it came off, I pretty much broke even and called it a day, because this part of the setup where it comes off and then rallies again, I've never seen it before, right? If this setup fails, that's it. To me, in my eyes, it's done. There's 0 trades left. In fact, if anything, there's going to be a short trade. But judging by the high volumes of, well, just volumes generally that were happening here, I was curious to see what was going to happen. I probably should have taken the short, especially when it came back up to 9899. But I wasn't quite sure if that was a sign of strength, because it's creating what was perceived as higher lows. So it was a bit coin flippy for me, even though this aspect failed, and that probably should have been a strong indicator that, hey, my A+ setup has just failed. How often have we seen a pump consolidate fail? As in fail to make new highs? How often does that happen? I don't think I've ever seen it happen. And there's a reason this is an A+ setup. But for the first time ever, we've seen it fail, or at least I've seen it fail, and it's come off. So my data on what to do next is practically 0. I have no data on what to do next for RNE. 0. So for me, it's a sit and wait. But to me, if an A+ setup fails, it probably should be a short. But short where? That's the thing I don't know. And of course, retesting 9.8 on garbage volumes, followed up by strong selling as it comes through. Really weak push and, rather weak hold at 9.8. I mean, everything sort of screams there should be a short, especially here. But I was also contemplating a short, yeah, when it got back to like 9.4. And of course, I probably would have got stopped out, reopened, and it would have been a bit of a mess. So I'd rather just sit back and observe something that I've never seen before. It's probably a much safer option for trading. So that way I know what to do next. But of course, you know, once it breaks 9.2, that's a no-brainer. Breaking 9.0, that's also a no-brainer as it comes off. And this is, I think VWAP is around here at 9.3. So there are, you know, there are levels to where shorting would have made sense, but I couldn't get any shorts anyway at this point in time. It felt too late anyway to get shorts, as in the broker didn't have any shorts remaining. So there were, at this point in time, I could see that there were shorts for sure. I could lock some in. At this point, it was sporadic. I could probably get a few thousand here or there, but nothing of substance. So really interesting setup. And yeah, I just wanted to highlight to you guys the first time we've ever seen a pump consolidate really fail, and in what kind of fashion it failed as well. So very very fascinating. And yeah, I think there's a lesson to be learned here of, if you haven't seen something, if there's pattern recognition that you don't have, then maybe it's not worth taking the trade. At least that was sort of my takeaway from this, seeing an A+ setup fail. I'm not so sure that just because it failed, it becomes like an A+ short at any point in time. And that's something I'll have to probably just scout out a little bit more in the future. But I think it's worth noting and worth paying attention to that, you know, if the A+ setup fails, retest the highs on low volumes, then that may be an A+ short. Something worth paying attention to in the future. Have a good one, guys.